Shalom Uvracha Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh. This evening, with the help of God, we're privileged to study together the Haftarah, the prophetic section, connected to the reading of Parshat Shemot, the first of the sections of the book of Exodus. Allow me to explain, I mentioned this, I believe, in one of our introductory comments about the Haftarot, that on many occasions there are different readings in the different communities. For instance, this week on Parshat Shemot, the Sephardic communities, our beloved Sephardic brothers and sisters, are not reading the prophetic section that we are going to be studying. They read from the book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 1. I wish we could have two classes in Haftarah, but to some people it's difficult enough to have to listen to the one class here. So we are going to study, not because any preferential treatment of Ashkenazim. We love Ashkenazim, we love Sfaradim, we love Teimanim, we love Italkim. There are different customs about the Haftarah, but I choose this evening to study together the Ashkenazic custom of the Haftarah with the highest level of regard for all of the other communities. All of the customs are well based in religious Jewish tradition, and we love and we respect and we revere them. Maybe if God will allow us a second series of Haftarah teachings, we will fill in the second year the Haftarot of the other communities. Believe that, we'll see. Anyway, this week we read from chapters 27, 28, and a selection from chapter 29 of the book of Isaiah. And there's one sentence there which I think is so all encompassing in terms of its myriads of explanations and its application to the particular era that we are currently living in, that I would like to read it together with you and perhaps expound upon some of the meanings of the text. It's a sentence that's known to us not only from our study of Isaiah, but it's also known to us because it's in the liturgical order of the Rosh Hashanah prayers, of the high holiday prayers. And thank God, one of the great thinkers and musicians of our generation, Rabbi Shlomo Kalbach of blessed memory, put some of the words of this sentence to music. I've often thought that one of the great ways of teaching Tanakh would be, I wish everyone would know as many sentences of Tanakh, as many sentences of the Bible as they happen to know some of the sentences that Rav Shlomo and others put to music, because the words of this sentence are so beautiful, and its melody is well known throughout the Jewish community. I am reading the last sentence of chapter 27, verse 13 of Isaiah, where we read, "V'haya bayom hahu." The prophet tells us, "V'haya bayom hahu," and it shall be on that day. This is a prophecy about the day that will be. The rabbis point out that generally speaking, the word v'haya is generally an upbeat prophecy. If you rearrange the letters of the word v'haya, vav hey yud hey, if you rearrange those letters, those are the letters of the name of God. V'haya, it will be, because the vision towards the future is the vision of optimism, the vision of the positive light, the vision of happiness. So generally speaking, although there are exceptions, V'haya bayom hahu is generally a prophecy of happiness. Can I ask our friends who are talking? We love the fact that you're talking, but it's the people who are listening would like to hear what you're saying. If you want to say it, please come closer to the camera and say it to everybody. I'm sorry. V'haya bayom hahu, and it shall be on that day. Yitaka b'shofar gadol. A great shofar will be sounding. There will be a great shofar that will be heard. There will be a great shofar that will be blown. And this shofar will have the power of bringing together all of the remnants of the people who were lost and who are cast away in the lands of dispersion. And when this shofar is sounded, Uva'u ha'ovedim be'eretz Ashur v'hanidahim be'eretz Mitzrayim. And all those people who were lost in the land of Ashur, and the land of Assyria, and all those who've gone cast away, scattered in the lands of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, they're all going to be coming back when they hear that shofar. When that great shofar is sounded, they're all coming back to the holy city of Yerushalayim. Does Ashur mean literally Assyria? That's the technical translation. Does Mitzrayim mean literally Egypt? Perhaps. But in the Hasidic literature especially in the Hasidic literature, in many rabbinic sources, these two countries represent two different forms of diaspora, two different forms of the types of people who are coming back to Yerushalayim. Ashur, Aleph Shin Vav Resh, represents those Jews who are in the lands of fortune, the lands of success. You know, there are many people who can't come back to Eretz Yisrael because they're doing so well. They're in the Eretz Ashur, like the word Ashrei, Osher with an Aleph, maybe somewhat connected to Osher with an Ayin, but Osher with an Aleph means fortune, right? So sometimes, may God bless them, and they should all prosper and be healthy and be successful. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge. You know, if a person is doing very well in some land, can they just leave everything and come to Yerushalayim? And then there are some people who are in the land of Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim means distress. Mitzrayim. Now, does it mean literally Egypt or conceptually? In many of the writings of the Hasidic Rebbe's, they write that Mitzrayim means all of the Jews who are suffering in lands of distress. And Isaiah, in this chapter, in Isaiah 27, he's addressing both groups of people. He's addressing those people who are doing very well, and because they're doing very well, maybe they haven't yet come back. And he's addressing those people who are suffering so bitterly, and because of their great suffering, maybe they're not allowed to come back. And he's saying there's going to be this great shofar that sounded. The great shofar will be sounded. It's a paraphrase of this phrase that's used in the standard Amidah prayers of the Jewish people throughout the world. We pray thrice daily, in all the prayers, morning, afternoon, evening. Tikah b'shofar gadol. That's one of the formal requests of the Amidah. Please God, we're waiting for that great shofar. And what's going to happen when that shofar sounds? Says Isaiah in the beautiful words of our Haftarah. Uva'u ha'ovedim be'eretz Ashur. All those people who are lost in the lands of Ashur. All of those people who are lost in the lands of Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim, if I may, there are commentaries who suggest that the ayim suffix in Hebrew, ayim as a suffix, often means a duality, a double level of something. For instance, yadayim means two hands, right? Oznayim means two ears. Nechirayim means two nostrils. Maybe Mitzrayim means two forms of distress. There are people who are suffering in Mitzrayim. Some people are physically distressed. Some people are spiritually distressed. And maybe they have their own form of Mitzrayim issues, and they don't know how to find their way back to Eretz Yisrael. Says the prophet, they're coming back when that great shofar, when that great ram's horn is sounded. V'hishtachavu laHashem. They will all come back and bow down to God. Bahar HaKodesh, Yerushalayim, and the holy mountain here in the holy city of Yerushalayim. I've read these words, Baruch Hashem, outside of Israel, but when you sit in Yerushalayim and you read it, and you read about like how everybody's coming back to Yerushalayim, they will all bow down on the Temple Mount, on the mountain of God, on the holy mountain in the city of Yerushalayim. Have we yet heard the shofar? Has the shofar been sounded? Do we have opportunities? What does the shofar sound like? Is it a literal shofar? Is it a figurative shofar? What does he mean, the shofar? I mean, this is one of the first points in world history where you can have something being sounded, you can hear it all over the world, right? That didn't happen before telecommunications. It didn't happen before satellite hookups. Today, there could be a shofar, a literal shofar that sounded, and instantly could be broadcast live all over the world, right? Is that what he means? Is that the shofar gadol, or does it mean there'll be some kind of indication that God is calling the people back to Yerushalayim? Do we hear the shofar? Let's say it's being sounded. Do we hear it? We recite a blessing on Rosh Hashanah. Lishmoa kol shofar, to listen, to hear, to adhere to the message of the shofar. Do we hear the shofar? Do we hear the shofar being sounded? Or are we deafening our ears to the shofar? Rav Saadia Gaon writes, and it's quoted in Avud Raham and other sources, one of the earliest authorities of our nation, that one of the reasons that we sound the shofar, there are many reasons. He has 10 reasons listed. One of the reasons for sounding the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, of course, the Torah says he's supposed to sound it's supposed to be a day of sounding. But trying to understand the reasons, he says, I believe it's his ninth explanation. He says it's to remind you about the day when the great shofar will be sounded. As you're listening to the shofar in Rosh Hashanah, understand this is just a little shofar, a local shofar. But there's going to be a shofar gadol, right? So maybe as you listen to the shofar of redemption on Rosh Hashanah, all of us are redeemed on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a new year, a new beginning, a new coronation of God's kingdom. But that's just a taste of the ultimate shofar, a taste of the shofar that's going to be, where the whole world is going to hear that great shofar. And maybe the events, thank God, that we've lived through in the history of our people, maybe each of those events are calling to us, to each of us, wherever he or she may be, maybe to listen to the shofar and to help fulfill the words of Isaiah. Do we wait for God to do it? Does it mean you're supposed to travel on your own, or are you supposed to be? The previous sentence says right before this, sentence 12. It says "Vatem teluketu." You see that? Vatem teluketu. Lahad b'nei Israel. You'll be gathered one at a time. One at a time. Everybody's going to be gathered. Are we supposed to wait to be gathered, or are we supposed to be active? Are we supposed to be proactive? Maybe the great shofar I saw in the writings of Rav Nebenzahl Shlita, one of the great rabbis here in Yerushalayim, the rabbi of the Jewish quarter, Rav Nebenzahl writes that the Hebrew word shofar is exactly numerically equivalent to the biblical way of spelling the word Yerushalayim. That's an amazing teaching. Jerusalem, the word Yerushalayim appears hundreds of times in Tanakh, spelled without the second yud. Yud Reish Vav Shin Lamed Mem. In our text, for instance, those people following in the text, to look at the last word in chapter 27 of Isaiah, Yerushalayim, Yud Reish Vav Shin Lamed Mem. The word shofar is numerically equivalent to Yerushalayim. Shofar is 586. Yerushalayim is 586. Maybe the ultimate message of sounding the shofar is to bring everyone back to Yerushalayim. May all the sounds of the shofar be heard. May we pay attention to the shofar, and may we celebrate together all of those from the lands of Ashur and all of those from the lands of Mitzrayim, whatever those lands represent. And maybe there's room for everybody here. There's room for the Ashur people, and there's room for the Mitzrayim people, and there's room for the lost people, and there's room for the castaway people. Let them all come to Yerushalayim, and Jerusalem will gather them all together, and they'll celebrate together in the holy city, bowing down before God in the city of Yerushalayim.
I have a question. Who blows the shofar?
It's not indicated in the text. It's a very good question, because there are those who want to say, again, if you learn it figuratively, so then that's not really relevant. Who blows the shofar? It's not talking about a shofar necessarily. But if you want to talk about shofar, maybe it means on some level that God is the one who's blowing the shofar. We say in our prayers, when we paraphrase this sense, we ask God. We're talking to God and we ask God, could you please sound the great shofar? We want Taka. That's a statement to God. Taka. The shofar gadol l'chayruteinu. Please sound the shofar for us and to bring our redemption. In our text here in Isaiah, those people familiar with the technical conjugation of Hebrew, for some people that's extremely difficult for them, and some people, God forbid, I don't want to use the word, but some people are bored by the study of the 7 levels of conjugation in Hebrew grammar. There are 7 different forms of conjugation. There's something called binyan nif'al, Yitaka. Yitaka, the word that's used in our sense, is a nif'al form. It shall be blown. It shall be sounded. There's no defined subject of the one who sounds. Maybe anybody wants to sound. We welcome anyone to sound the shofar. We'll sound the shofar and maybe get everybody together and let them all come back to Yerushalayim. Maybe different people hear the shofar in different ways. Maybe the shofar is teaching us, no matter what kind of broken sound you had before it. The shofar starts off with a straight sound, and then you have broken sounds, and then you have straight sounds. So maybe you've gone through wherever the Jewish people are, wherever they are, all the lands of the dispersed, shivarim, ta-ta, ta-ta, ta-ta. Or maybe they have the truah, ta-ta, 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 ta-ta. Or they have the shivarim truah, ta-ta, 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 ta-ta. Whatever sounds. So you come back to Yerushalayim, yitaka. There'll be the smooth, straight sound of the tekiyah, and everything will be calm again. And no longer will they have to suffer anywhere. They'll all bow down before the Lord on the holy mountain of Yerushalayim.
Amen.